Well, hello, my friends. LinkedIn, YouTube, hey there. So today we are going to dive into something very timely. This is supposed to really be the season of love, of peace, of gratitude. And, you know, so many of us feel the opposite. We feel anxiety, we feel stress, we feel judgment, we feel frustration. And I get it. You're frustrated. You've got so much going on, you've got expectations coming out the wazoo. You're likely exhausted, with everything, fourth quarter, everything wrapping up, everyone trying to finish everything this last quarter of the year, this last month of the year. You probably feel disconnected from your team, from your boss, from your loved ones, even from yourself. And if you're feeling like you're just surviving these holidays, let me tell you, you are not alone. So many people I talk to, that's exactly what's happening. And that is why today I am going to dive into this topic about this isn't just how it is or how it has to be. You actually have a choice. And it may not be an easy one to shift in this season, but I think you can. There are shifts you can make. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's first, before I dive in, I just want to ask you, have you actually felt, in fact, I was just talking to someone today, and this is not quite the same words, but have you ever felt like you're really just kind of running on autopilot during the holidays? You're running on empty, you're doing all the things, but you're just not really feeling it. You're like getting all the stuff done, but you're not feeling the joy and the awe and the miracle and the, all of the beautiful things that this season has to offer. Now, I do want to be clear, life is 50-50. We're going to feel the shit. We're going to feel the suck. We're going to feel like garbage, 50% of the time. And how we deal with that is what will create the exhaustion, the frustration. When the frustration and all that junk and the yuck is more like 80 to 90% versus only half the time, that's what we have. And someone I was talking to today just said that she's been stressing so much, she's just been stuffing everything down, and so she doesn't feel the frustration, she doesn't feel the anger, she doesn't feel all of that anymore, but she doesn't feel good anymore either. When you damp down and when you just push away and close the door on all of your quote unquote negative emotions, you also close the door on joy and happiness and freedom and peace and love and contentment and well-being. So let's jump in to a few things, because I don't want you running on empty for the holidays. You may be doing a lot of things, but I want you to be able to feel it all, and I want you to be able to enjoy it all, and I want you to be able to love this season, be able to experience the love and the joy and all those things. All right. So the irony of these holidays is that while, the focus of these holidays is on love and peace and gratitude, the reality is so far from it. There is just this mismatch between our expectations at work, what we need to get done, what we need to be doing, what we need to be doing to get to all the events, what we need to be doing to make sure everybody has everything that they need, and that all the holidays, the food and the decorations and the presents and all of these things are taken care of. And it's just a mismatch when we play that up against, and then there's the cultural and societal expectations, not just of our, family and friends and coworkers and bosses. We play that up against, or there's cultural and societal expectations of what we should do as women in the workforce, as women leaders. And when we play that up against our internal needs, there's just such a mismatch. There's such a mismatch between what's expected and what we need, and how we find the flow and the rhythm of that. I don't want to say balance because it may not be, this equal, beautiful balance all the time. There's going to be ebb and flow. And so I like to think of it as more of a rhythm or a dance that you have between the expectations and the external requirements and your own internal needs. And what are those internal needs? They might be for fun, for rest, for connection, for joy, for meaning, for creativity, and so many more things. And when we dig deep, when we kind of peel this back, the root cause is that so many of us have been running on autopilot for a very, very, very long time. And I don't just mean that you've been in the workforce a long time and so you've been doing that for a long time. I mean, since we were very young. So most of us have developed these habits in childhood that helped us cope, that were coping mechanisms. They helped us survive. They helped us to experience love. They helped us to manage chaos that we lived within. And those coping mechanisms are things like perfectionism, like people pleasing, like caretaking, like overachieving and overfunctioning, like conflict avoiding. All of these things, these habits were built when we were 3 to 5, 5 to 7 years old, became so ingrained that they started to feel like who we were, that this is just who I am. I'm just like the nice person. I'm the person who keeps the peace. Not always necessarily the case. So common habits that many women, many of the executive leaders that I coach are taking care of everyone else over yourself. Overachieving to prove your worth, to prove that you deserve to be at the table with the rest of the people there, many of whom are the opposite gender. Avoiding conflict and difficult conversations to kind of keep things at an even keel, to keep things from getting into a maybe chaotic conversation that you don't want to have to handle, and feeling responsible for making sure that others are feeling good, that others feel taken care of, that others feel happy, that others feel that others appreciate us, that others look at us as being good and kind and generous and productive. So these habits, these are really habits. They're not just, good traits. Oftentimes they are taken to a point. Achieving taken to a point of overachieving is what can cause burnout. Caring for others can be taken to a point of causing burnout when we ignore our own needs in the process. So one of the things that I see with my clients, a huge mistake I see, is that my clients think that that's who they are, that those habits are just who they are. I'm just a people pleaser. You wouldn't believe it. I've seen influencers on LinkedIn, Instagram, who, I'm just a people pleaser, and they think it's just like this nonchalant thing to say, when really that can create so much chaos, so much burnout, so much that's detrimental, not just to our own work life, our personal life, but our own health. It is impacting our health. And oftentimes these have become so ingrained that we don't even recognize them. One of the women I was talking to today talked about how she went and talked to her friends and, asked about some of these habits, if they noticed them in her. And sometimes that's helpful. And other times that's not helpful because other times people are going to tell you what they think you want to hear, or people are going to tell you things to be kind and nice, and they're not really going to be able to help you be that reflection of who they really are. And if you have someone like that, you're really, really rare. It's rare and it's beautiful. And the way I phrase it is, you can't read the label from inside the jar. Yes, you need that outside perspective. And oftentimes you need someone who's trained to be able to be that mirror and to be able to help you do that exploration, not to tell you, you do this wrong, you do that wrong, you do this wrong, or, oh no, everything's perfect, you're really great. And none of us is perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. And so we think that those habits are who we are, and we need some sort of outside help to kind of read that label, to really be able to understand those habits clearly and to get a good picture of what they are. And so many of women think they're trapped in those, that's just who I am. It's what I'm, That's the hand I was dealt, and I just have to deal with it. And they've been running on them for decades, literally decades. And change can be overwhelming. And especially when you're already burned out, trying to shift those habits can be really, really hard. And what I often see is people trying to white knuckle their way through it, that they're just white knuckling their way, trying to force themselves to act differently. And that never works. It might work for a short period of time. It is not sustainable, because I always talk about how you have to cure burnout from the inside out. You have to start here. You have to start here. Here and here, our thoughts and our feelings. Everything that happens outside of us, all of those things that happen outside of us that we cannot control, those are circumstances. Those are the facts of life. How we interpret those, that's our thought. What we believe about all that stuff out there, why somebody did something, or what it means about what they think about me, those are all thoughts. And those thoughts are what causes us to feel certain ways. Somebody does something or says something, and we think, they don't think I'm good enough to do this job. And that pisses me off. So we think something, they think I'm not good enough. I get angry. And how I behave when I'm angry I might be resentful. I might be passive aggressive. I might get defensive. All of these things are coming from that feeling of pissed off, or maybe even resentful. And so that's what's going to impact the results we have ultimately. Now, what I do with my clients is we start to create space. So we have the circumstances that happen outside of our lives. Our thoughts are going a mile a minute, 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. They are just going like wildfire. And most of them we're not even conscious of. And they create feelings, whether we're conscious of them or not, they're going to create a feeling. And so part of what we try to do is separate, what am I thinking about this circumstance? What am I thinking about this event that happened? What am I thinking about what was said? What am I thinking about what wasn't said or what wasn't done? Those thoughts, being able to become aware of those, creating space between our thoughts, our feelings. When I have that thought, how do I feel? So many of us have turned off our feelings for so long, we don't even know. And those feelings are what are causing our actions. So if all we ever do is try to change our actions without getting in touch with what feeling is driving that and what thought is driving that feeling, then we're never going to create sustainable change. So let's talk about these steps. We have 4 steps to reclaim your power and your choice, so that you don't have to run on autopilot, so that you don't have to be in this space of just habitually overdoing, overgoing, overachieving, people pleasing, overcaring while ignoring your own needs. These habits, these patterns that we get stuck in. Think about, I want you to write down, what are some of those autopilot habits that you do during the holidays? Do you keep the peace and make sure there's no arguing during the holidays? I knew someone like that. So is there people pleasing? I don't really want to go here on Thanksgiving or Christmas or, whatever your holidays are that are coming up for you. You don't want to go somewhere, but you go anyway because you don't want to raise a ruckus. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Write down one habit that you think defines this time of year for you, and journal about it. Journal. So the journal prompt for this first one is, what one habit do I think defines me during this time during the year? And I might go through this and then share this later in the week with you, because I went through and I wrote all this, but I didn't take the time, because I did this just over the weekend. So I didn't take the time to just work this through myself. So it's going to be a good exercise. And then see if over the next week you can start to observe your thoughts without judgment about this particular habit. And just observe. See if you can pause for 60 seconds during some sort of a stressful moment and notice the story that's running in your head. What am I thinking about this? What am I making this mean? And, a lot of times sometimes people can get a little bit like put off by the word story. I'm not making up a story. That's really how it is. It's how it is in your mind. And in a way, it really is a story, and it's your thoughts, your beliefs about what is happening out there. And so that's number 2. A key phrase to think about when you're in these habits and when this stress is coming up and you just want to like react is to just say, it's not who I am, it's just what I do. It's not who I am, it's what I do. And what I do, I can shift. Okay. So you want to like pause for 60 seconds in that stressful moment. Just pause. See how slow, I'm going to make myself yawn here. See how slow you can do that inhale. Maybe pause the breath for a little bit at the top. Exhale. And it's not that actually activates your nervous system. The slow, deep breath with a little pause at the top and a little pause at the bottom, that's actually going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. It takes you out of that fight, flight, or freeze and brings you back into that anti-stress mode instead of stress mode. All right. So first one was awareness, really kind of journaling about what kind of habit are you used to really kind of embodying during these holidays? That's number 1, awareness. Second one is observation. Watch yourself in these habits. Where is it coming up? See if you can pause for 60 seconds in those situations when someone is asking something of you that you don't necessarily want to do, or asking you to go somewhere you don't really want to go. And see if you can pause and just observe what's happening inside your brain or inside your body. How are you feeling? So your thoughts and your feelings there. And then the third thing is really to create some space between the trigger and your action. So before saying yes to something, before, really see if you can pause and ask yourself, is this aligned with what I want or what I need right now? Okay, so that's question number 3 for you. Third thing to think about is create that space. That's part of the observation as well. You're creating that space, but then really ask yourself before you respond, before you open up your mouth, before you let your face tell them yes or no, really ask yourself, is this aligned with what I want or need right now? And then really intentionally choose. Reconnect with those needs. And that might be something we'll talk about later in terms of journaling, is really getting in touch with some of those core needs, those core gifts and talents and preference. What are your preferences? What do you prefer? What do you need? Now, I'm not saying that all you'll ever get is what you prefer. Sometimes we give and take to create an environment of a really joyful celebration. But when we give in and are in resentment, that's where things go sideways. So really reconnect. What do you want this season to feel like? And what are 1 or 2 things, 1 or 2 small ways you can really bring that feeling into your life? And again, that feeling is based on how we think. One of the things I love during the holiday season are the lights. And every time we're out driving somewhere, especially when my husband is driving, I love just taking them in and just enjoying the holidays. My husband suggested we buy this big property that was, I don't know if it was for sale or if it was just this big open property area. He says, we'll just buy this lot and we'll just put up a bunch of, make it into a subdivision of your own that you can have all the Christmas lights you want. I don't exactly understand. I'm like, no, because we don't really live in a neighborhood where we have 2 neighbors. We have 3 houses on 40 acres. So it's kind of not as like neighborhoody where you might have hundreds of houses in a neighborhood with their, many of them with their houses decorated. Anyway, I digress here. So reconnect. What do you want this season to feel like? And see if you can journal about 1 or 2 small ways that you can bring that feeling into your life. And then maybe there's a small experiment you could do, is see if this week, between now and next Monday, because I usually come live here on every Monday, is between now and next Monday, can you say no to one thing that really doesn't serve you? That you know somebody else really wants you to do, but you know it doesn't serve your heart. You know it doesn't serve your energy. You know it doesn't serve you having the experience of the holiday season that you really want to have. And see if you can say yes to one thing that truly lights you up. For example, I love going as a family and driving around and watching the lights. I'm going to see if I can make that happen. I've wanted to make it happen the last few years, and we didn't. We used to do it all the time when my daughter was young, and she's in town for 3 weeks, and I'm going to see if I can make it happen. And then, yeah, so what's one small thing that you can say no to in the next week? And what's one small thing that you can say yes to that truly lights you up? All right, you have a choice how you move through this holiday season. It's not going to happen overnight. You know, these 4 steps in terms of that awareness, that observation, creating space, intentionally choosing, and doing these little experiments. I work with some of my clients for months on these. And I think that if you just have the intention of making this shift for this holiday season, I know you can do something with it. So small intentional steps. I think you can find the joy and the peace and the excitement and wonder and awe of this season, even amidst some of the chaos. So I invite you, if you know your life has been sort of chaotic and you've been running on autopilot, please, I will put a link in the comments after this posts, after this live is done. I will put a link in the comments for you to book a consult with me, a free call where we can look at what is going on with your situation that is creating burnout in your life, and we can look at how coaching might be a way that will help you shift out of that for good. So this isn't something that you revisit every single year. Thank you so much for your attention. If you're watching the replay, please, type replay or give me a comment. What's one thing in the live that you appreciated, that you liked? And I hope your holiday season is a little bit less stressful. Have a great rest of your week.